Welcome to the Virtual Memories Show. I'm your host, Gil Roth, and we're here to preserve and promote culture in this benighted age, one weekly conversation at a time. You can subscribe to the Virtual Memories Show through iTunes or by plugging our RSS feed into your favorite podcatcher. You can find the RSS feed on our websites, vmspod.com or chimeraobscura.com/VM. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at VMSPod, at virtualmemoriespodcast.tumblr.com, and on Spotify, YouTube, and TuneIn.com by searching for Virtual Memories Show. And visit patreon.com/VMSpod or paypal.me/VMSpod to make a one-time or recurring donation and help me continue to produce smart conversation about books, art, comics, and culture every week at the Virtual Memories Show. We made it through Thanksgiving week. I got lots of stuff done. Also got the news about Clive James's death the day before Thanksgiving, which cast a pall, but got me to re-listen to that episode and share it with lots of people. So I guess not a good thing, but whatever. As far as Thanksgiving itself went, I had a fun mix of people for Thanksgiving dinner, if that's what you call it, at 2 in the afternoon. I decided to extend a last-minute invite to a podcast guest pal of mine who moved out east a year or so back. Just, it hit me Wednesday afternoon. He might not have anyone to spend the holiday with, and what with my being a Jewish mother and everything, I just figured, let me just check and see if he wanted to come out here or if he already had plans. He took me up on the invite, and that made for some entertaining conversation. I'll admit, it was a little weird for me because I tend not to mix different pieces of my life like that. Like, I've recorded some podcasts here at my house, but that's not quite the same as meeting my father, for example, which this guest got to do. But I guess maybe I'm just getting a little looser with operational security as I get older. Anyway, we are now into the home stretch for 2019. It's December. I am debating whether or not to go back to 2 episodes per week this month because I've gotten pretty far ahead and I don't want to leave episodes sitting 2 or 3 months before they finally get published. And I'm probably taking the weeks of Christmas and New Year's off from the show because I don't know how many of you will be listening to stuff. This is all just me, trying to generate reasons for guilt, I suppose. I also do have a few shows to record this month. There's also Tom Spurgeon's memorial service in Columbus, Ohio in 2 weeks, then the holidays a week or so later. Bunch of work to get done. Like I say, guilt. All of that said, don't be surprised if there is a bonus episode or 2 in December. For now, you get my conversation with Robb Armstrong, the cartoonist behind the nationally syndicated comic strip Jumpstart. Now, Robb and I met at CXC, Cartoon Crossroads Columbus, last September. I moderated his panel at the festival, and then we recorded the following morning, which was Sunday. Because of a scheduling screw-up and misunderstanding, we had to get together at 8 a.m. Sunday morning. Made for a pretty relaxed vibe as far as I'm concerned. Now, Robb's panel the day before, the one I moderated, was a blast, even though he goofed on me repeatedly for describing Jumpstart as an African-American domestic comic strip. He prefers domestic comic strip. But the session that he did with the audience prepared me for a pretty thoughtful conversation with an artist for whom there just isn't a lot of biographical information for me to prep with. And during that CXC session, he told the story of meeting his idol, Charles Schulz, as well as some later stories of his interactions with Sparky that were just heartrending in their way. So I won't go into them here, but I will say, if Robb is speaking at a festival, make time to see his panel. And if you have kids who are into cartooning or just making art, steer them to Robb's sessions because he does a great job engaging with them and helping them to understand what they can do with pen and paper. And and generally just supporting the idea of making art. And we get into that, the responsibility he feels, that all artists should feel, about helping kids, helping students, helping up and coming artists. It's a pretty inspiring conversation. Another thing, Robb had one tough childhood in Philadelphia, and he details that in his book, Fearless, A Cartoonist's Guide to Life. I've seen excerpts of that, but haven't read the whole thing. He goes into some of those details in his live presentations also. If he sounds a little like a motivational speaker during parts of our conversation, that's because he is. Both professionally doing motivational speeches and just through the example he sets, which is very inspiring. Again, we're going to get into Jumpstart and what it's like to manage to keep a comic strip going for 30 years, and what a rare privilege that is, and what he had to learn to get to that point. Now, as caveats go, not a ton. Hotel room during a festival at 8 a.m., so filtered out air conditioning noise. We both had deeper voices than usual. I was going through a head cold. He was going through a late night karaoke experience, which he mentions during the episode. But otherwise, nothing of note. Now here's a bio I put together for Robb. Robb Armstrong is the creator of the nationally syndicated comic strip Jumpstart, which recently celebrated its 30th anniversary and will see a retrospective collection in 2020. He is also the author of Fearless, A Cartoonist's Guide to Life. And now, the Virtual Memories conversation with Robb Armstrong. $30-year anniversary for Jumpstart?
Yeah, 30 years, man. I got...
Did you ever imagine it would go that long?
I am actually... I'm surprised and I'm not surprised. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised only in the sense that this may surprise you to hear this, but I'm surprised in the sense that the industry has survived this long. Not that my comic strip has survived in the industry this long. The industry has been sort of limping along for so long. In the 90s, I thought it was over for newspapers. Mm-hmm. When the internet happened, late 90s, I thought, wow, this is it, you know. I'm actually, when it comes to the work I do, it's in my blood, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Gil, it's absolutely, I've India ink in my veins, and I put a lot of work into every single strip I've ever done. I find strips in my files, or someone sends them to me, and I think they hold up. I'm proud of the work ordinarily. I mean, almost always. Yeah. Once in a while, I mean, no one's perfect, so yeah. I may see something that hasn't aged all that well. I used to make way more references to pop culture.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. How sort of timeless. I mean, contemporary, but timeless the strip can really be.
Yeah, I was crazy enough to put Arsenio Hall in my strip in the 90s. I don't want to see that ever again. But other than that kind of thing, you know, by the way, not a bad idea to put an actual person in the strip. Is how I met Quincy Jones. It's how I met Tony Braxton and Brian McKnight, and like you just mention them,
yeah,
and they call you and go, "Wow, man,
I showed up in a comic strip."
Yeah, they're very excited. Questlove tweeted, "Oh my God, I think I made it. I'm in Jumpstart." You know, so it's not a terrible thing, but you have to be careful,
right,
and not overdo that kind of stuff.
And I also noticed today's strip actually is a podcast related one, so I thought it's kind of appropriate that you sit down.
That's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. I just had that's nice. Okay, I know we didn't time this, but you know it still works pretty well.
That's amazing.
But how'd the strip change for you? You mentioned in the presentation yesterday that you started with more gag and humor and classic setup, and you made a transition away from that and really focus on the characters. Can you talk a little about that transition, how it changed for you overall?
Well, it comes from, just being really young and a fan of comic strips in general. Most comic strips that had an influence on me were gag-driven strips coming up. There was Garfield, a classic gag-driven daily and Sunday strip, and Peanuts, generally speaking, is also gag driven. Schultz obviously did more storylines than Jim Davis. God rest his soul. I'm a huge protege, really, of Schultz.
I was going to say the God rest his soul was for Charles Schultz and not Jim Davis, who was still alive.
Yes, as far as thank you for clearing that up. I saw Jim recently too. I don't want him to think I think something happened to him. Yeah. So I was influenced by a lot of gag-driven daily strips, as well as gag-driven panel strips, like The Far Side, and I've even contributed to the New Yorker magazine over the years, which is straight gag writing. So when I got into the business in the 80s, I thought that was the job, actually. I wasn't that into serial strips or strips that weren't funny every day. And I didn't understand what character-driven work would require of me. It took me a long time to realize. I would even say up through the early 2000s. It was when I realized that the best way for me to develop my strip into my own future would be to develop the characters and make it a very strong character-driven piece of work. And just focus on the history. When I say history, I don't want to make it sound too heavy when we are talking about, cartoons and the newspaper, but the strip has a history. The characters have had a life, and because of that, they're real. Like, my kids are very real. I don't have to convince anybody of that. I have 2 kids, a 22-year-old named Rex, 26-year-old named Tess. Congrats, Tess. She got married 2 weeks ago. Oh. No one's got to be convinced that they're real. No one's got to be convinced that my wife is real. But I'm trying to convince people every day that my characters are real. And that's what character-driven focus is trying to do, is convince the reader of something that the writer is already convinced of, that these are real people. I know this sounds crazy.
No, it's something I've been talking about with a couple of friends recently, that guys like Jaime Hernandez, not a daily cartoonist, but, ongoing comic, the characters are real to him. The key to talking to Jaime and to other guys who I came up adoring in the 80s and 90s is that those characters are not stand-ins for X, Y, and Z.
No.
Maggie and Hopi or these other figures are themselves, and that's how they have this longevity. Yeah.
Gil, it's absolutely... I'm glad to hear that. It's a relief. I thought I might need to see a shrink.
Well, you all do. That's a separate issue. But but the characters are much better for the rest of us as readers.
Yeah. The characters, because they have their own lives, it's important for the creator. In my case, I'll speak personally. It's very important for me not to conflate my life with theirs, which I did a lot early on. Joe would wear the same clothing I was wearing and all that kind of stuff. But I don't, I no longer associate with him. I consider him a different guy with a different life, different priorities in life, a different worldview that I have. He's almost nothing like me. And part of that is respecting him as a cartoon character that I created and now I'm treating as a human being. And part of it is respecting me as a cartoonist and being disciplined, because guilt is very tempting to take this opportunity, which with being published in all these newspapers all around the world, and use it as a bully pulpit. And 30 years is just long enough to realize that is actually not my role, to preach my worldview using this vehicle. And it would do no good for the characters who have stories to tell, and they need time to tell it. This is not television. The Big Bang Theory was on TV for I'm not even sure how long it was, 7 years, 8 years. Yeah. It's like a magnificent example of success on television. 30 years of doing something means I have way more real estate to tell stories. Way more time to develop characters. I only bring up the Big Bang Theory because
it's longevity. Yeah.
It's longevity, and it's also a great example of character-driven work on television. They did an amazing job with that show, distinguishing Sheldon from Leonard and Penny, who from Bernadette, et cetera, et cetera. They were extremely disciplined. You could read the script of The Big Bang. A friend of mine works on The Big Bang Theory. You can read the script without seeing who's voicing what and know who's talking.
Yeah.
In a good comic strip that has been treated with respect and discipline, character-wise, I should be able to show you a speech balloon with no frame of reference. Yeah. You should be able to say, oh, that's Crunchy. That's Joe's partner talking. Or that's Marcy, not Joe. If you can't tell a difference, it means I'm being lazy. Hmm.
You talked a little about the work process during the presentation, also just in terms of how a week breaks down for you. When did you reach that level of discipline? Was it there from the outset in 1989, or was it something you had to eventually? I'm killing myself if I'm doing 3 strips a day before they have to go out.
When I signed my deal in 1989, I was also working 9 to 5 in the advertising industry. I was an art director, and I had to be somewhere at a certain time, and then spend my entire day in that place, and et cetera. Even trying to get syndicated for many years, I was in that industry, and I was drawing comic strips in the copy room at these agencies and hiding my work under my drawing pad with the client's storyboards on top of that pad and Jumpstart under the pad. And so I was always doing this weird juggling act when I worked in the advertising business. As a result of that, I did develop, so I signed my deal, and I'm nowhere close to retiring from the business, and I continue doing both jobs. So I developed a work ethic back then that really serves me very well now. I was able to get up extremely early in the morning without a problem, work for a few hours, then go to work, come home, quickly wolf down some food, and then work for a few hours and go to sleep.
Did you do the more creative aspects in the morning and the more, technical and inking stuff in the evening, or was that?
No, that's extremely insightful, because you can't really do it any other way.
That's my assumption. By the end of a day, you were not thinking up new ideas.
It's
just
crazy.
Taking care of
It's crazy to think back on it, because not only was there this need to meet the deadlines content-wise, I had to physically get the strip to New York back in those days while working at an ad agency. And getting the strip transported, I'm talking about the original comic strips. They didn't want copies.
No, you had to run to FedEx. You
had to run to FedEx. You had to keep your eye on the clock. You had to, there was a FedEx office. This is a true story. I'm not proud of this, but just illustrating my point here. I lived not far from a FedEx office back in those days, and it closed at 8:30. But if I didn't get everything done, after having worked all day, I'd come home and I'd start cranking, right? And I had until 8:30 to get it packaged up into a FedEx envelope. And then I had to drive only about 3.5 miles to FedEx by 8:30. If you were there at 8:31, you see those shutters close. Yeah. Those blinds go click, and that was it. Sort of. If you jump right back into, I had to jump right back into my car, and I could drive for another 35 minutes without traffic, but it could get crazy with traffic to the airport in Philadelphia. There was a 9:30 FedEx. It's 1 hour more, 1 hour difference. Yeah. A 9:30 FedEx drop, basically giving it to the airplane that's going to Memphis. Yeah. Right?
The funny thing is, the stuff was going to New York City, and conceivably you could have just driven up, and
well, I'm getting to that.
Oh, geez.
There were very many. I hate this is the part I'm not too proud of. Very many blinds closing at 9:31 at the airport. Same thing, click, and then it's off to New York. I'd have to wait. I couldn't just jump in the car because it's late at night in Philadelphia, so it's late at night in New York. I'd have to wait until super, super early in the morning, jump back in the car, drive to Manhattan, run upstairs. They were on my syndicate was on Park Avenue, 200 Park Avenue back in those days. Drive to Park Avenue, park illegally, run up the stairs, jump on this elevator that went up to this tower, and then run into the syndicate and say almost nothing to this receptionist and just drop off this package and dart down to my car, all trying to not get a ticket.
Yeah.
And sometimes this would work. Sometimes it would be tricky. There'd be a guy standing in front of my car yelling, "What are you doing here? Illegally, blah, 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 blah." Now, why not just pay to park? It's bad enough I just paid to drive.
I was going to bring up the train, and I was like, that's probably going to be more expensive than what he was making from the strip. At that.
Well, the train is a whole other thing. So say I didn't want to drive for whatever reason. I could, and did many times, hand my strip to a courier. There was a courier in Philadelphia called Egbert, and they would take the train. And it was like $35. And you can give it to Egbert, and they would take it to New York on a train. This courier service wasn't an official courier service, so there was no uniforms. Just some guy that you'd have to ask around and go, "Are you Egbert? Egbert? Egbert?" And some guy would go, "Yeah." Some guy in a baseball cap. And I would give him my originals. And he would go. But
see, I want to see a strip about that guy. I don't know. You may think about bringing that in somebody's flashback or something.
Oh, my goodness. Gil, this isn't even the weirdest transition, okay, of my strip to a stranger. It happened at FedEx. At the airport one night it was 9:30. I don't think it was 9:30 yet. I think it was 9:28, 9:29. It was click with the shutters, the blinds closing. I said, "There's no way this is 9:30." First of all, I didn't live an hour from the airport. Yeah. And I was furious. And I'm just shaking my head and uttering various words I can't do on the podcast. And some guy runs up. He seemed to be from Pakistan, had that accent. And he said, they're not closed yet. I said, "Dude." And even he knew it wasn't 9:30 yet because he said, "It's not even time yet." I said, "I know." I said, "I know it's not time yet. I've been here for 5 minutes, okay?" He said, "This is terrible. This is terrible." I said, "I know. They're cheating. They're trying to go home or get out of here early or something." He said, "No, you don't understand. I have to be in." He said, my package has to be in Washington, D.C. It must be in Washington, D.C. And I have to be in New York City. And my package must be in the morning. And I said, wait, what did you just say? He said, "I have to be in New York City. My package must be." I said, no, that's it.
Yeah. Tell you what.
Why don't you take this with you to New York City? 200 Park Avenue. Is your meeting anywhere near there? He said, "It's walking distance from there." I said, "I think I've just fallen in love with you." I gave this guy, who I did not know, Jumpstart. And he delivered it to Manhattan. Called me after handing it off to the receptionist, like I usually do. And he said, "Oh, they're so nice here. It's so colorful. Cartoons all over the place." I said, "Yeah, this is great." And I sent the guy, later I sent him one of the originals from that delivery. So I was very desperate in those days to get the strip. So I'm very grateful now to have
as much as you complain about the internet destroying your entire economic model, at least it's got the benefit of being able to send stuff.
That's stupid. I never thought about that.
Yes.
The internet has that going for it.
Yeah.
It's made the transition a mindless and fast process. I literally just press send on my computer and I watch this green line go from Burbank to now Kansas City. Mm-hmm. The option to drive is actually over. My syndicate's in Kansas City, Missouri. I'd have to move to Kansas City to do any of it. And one of my friends did do that. My friend Bill Amon, who used to do Foxtrot.
Oh yeah,
moved to Kansas City, Missouri.
To be close.
Yeah, yeah. Back in the 90s, he and I got syndicated around the same time. And you get more for your money in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's certainly my family lives out in St. Louis, so yeah, I know it's a different cost of living in general. Leaving Philadelphia for L.A.?
Yeah, I did it for a combination of personal and professional reasons. I actually had my first marriage ended in 2006, and I didn't move to L.A. until 2009 when we were having custody issues and my ex-wife's employment issues. So she got a job in California, not in Los Angeles, but in part of California called Redlands, which is about an hour from LA. She got a job teaching at a university and said, I got to take this job. I'll be moving there with the kids. And they were young then. Yeah. And I had prevented her from doing that in Seattle a year prior or 2 years prior. Put up a fight. And these fights were just terrible, Gil. The whole thing, being divorced and going through these types of fights were just awful and exhausting. And just breeding so much animus that I said, you know what? Let's do it. Go get that job. Yeah. And I sold my house in Philly and moved to LA. So by the time I made that decision, I was remarried. So my new wife, God bless her, Crystal, said, okay, let's pack it up and go. And we really were happy to have made that decision. LA is extremely conducive to creative endeavors. Yeah. It's just the heartbeat of creativity. Whereas when I was in Philly, there would be kind of a weird curiosity when I mentioned who I am and what I do for some reason. There was a kind of excuse me, you're doing what? Yeah. I'm drawing this comic strip, and they go, huh? Is someone paying you for that? There's a weird react. I'm not saying it was all the time, but it happened enough in Philly that I began to have a complex about what I was doing. It seemed to be like a little child's job or something, like pats on top of the head.
When you grow up, you'll be doing real.
Right, something real. Yeah. Pats on the head going, well, congratulate, good for you. I heard that a lot. Good for you. To this day, I don't like good for you. There's something about it I don't like, but you don't hear good for you in LA.
Yeah, they respect that you're making a living in something that actually tells a story.
Oh my goodness, tremendous respect. Not just for that, but for being my own boss.
How did it change the Strip, being outside of Philadelphia? How did it affect
I think it exploded with the possibility. I think that
getting some distance.
I became a slightly different type of a writer, way more committed to the Strip itself and not other distractions, other than the possibility of getting it sold to show business somehow and made into a TV. There was a distraction for a while like that. And I got real close, actually. Fox offered me a deal in 2014 to make it into a sitcom, which was very exciting. And it was a long journey. I'm cutting out a lot of boring industry processes, getting a manager, getting an agent, getting a producer interested, and getting a showrunner, and blah, blah, blah. But I ended up with an agent at William Morris Endeavor. It's a big deal. And a producer named Aaron Kaplan, who has a lot of things on the air, Fresh Off the Boat, and The Shy, and different things. He's working on an Emmett Till project now. He's a very, very prolific producer. And all the pieces were in place, and Fox offered us a deal. And at the 11th hour said, we're not going to do the show. It's not really for Fox. And it was a blow. I mean, it was like, wow. 'Cause the journey, which I just condensed into about 30 seconds, was long. Yeah. I'm not going to call it long and harrowing, because it wasn't harrowing.
No, but you have the ups and downs.
But it was, it was ups and downs, and just...
And you hadn't been through something like that before.
No.
Where I imagine TV people have seen it, oh yeah, no, everything looks great now, but, don't worry, it'll come back. It's no, it's gone again.
Yeah. And for anyone who's going through that for the very first time, it's undeniably sexy. Like the whole thing, every piece of it. That's why I'm not calling it some arduous journey. It was just the sexiest time, and I can't even describe it. Yeah. That suddenly everyone you encounter is just blown away meeting you. Like every single, like you go from anonymity, not on the air yet. There's no show, but every person I encountered in 2014 was OMG, you're him. What can I get you? Can I help him? Yeah. I am him. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Can I get you anything? I'm like, yeah, I'd like a cup of coffee. And it goes away. Boom, it's gone. You're back to anonymity again. So I treated that as an opportunity to refocus. And that's the reason I say that Jumpstart experienced a leap in quality. When I said, okay, this happened for a reason. I bet I dodged a bullet. I bet my strip would not have survived the cancellation of a show that was based on it. Mm-hmm. And these shows have such a short lifespan.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how sexy it is to be in Studio City and in Culver City and at the Fox lot. A lot of my meetings, by the way, were in the building that Die Hard was staged in.
Nakatomi Plaza?
Nakatomi Plaza. So we walk into Nakatomi Plaza and saying yippee-ki-yay and everything. Like, I just thought I ain't going to heaven. Turns out this might have been the opposite place, because they would have commandeered my strip. Even if they didn't take any kind of an active or official role in the strip and focused on television, that presence, that TV presence, is so much greater than the newspaper presence that there's a very good chance I would have started to mimic what was happening on television within the framework of Jumpstart. Yeah. Just because the deadlines are tight still and you're busy on this lot, and then you come back and you write things that might have happened on that lot into this, and I think it would have poisoned the well, actually, to be honest with you. So I kind of went, phew, wow, and I never got upset about it. I never shed a tear over the Fox deal, and instead said it's time to really do a character-driven strip that people react to and accept emotionally. Yeah. While laughing. Don't get too intense or too serious, but focus on something that will make the reader feel something. And I believe it has worked.
What do you tell Robb Armstrong 30 years ago when he sees that first strip in print? What do you go back and tell him? Don't worry about the gags. Go to the characters. But besides that, you know.
I was going to say, gags are funny, but that's one thing I would tell them. But the other thing is, pace yourself. Mm-hmm. Pace yourself. Be grateful. Have gratitude. You can do a good strip every day. And you don't need fame. You don't need your idea of glory. Glory will come your way, but not in the way you may think. Don't pursue shallow versions of it. Don't worry about awards. Like, I remember in the early days, like, I wanted to win. We have our industry awards called the Reubens, and I wanted to win a Reuben really badly. Mm-hmm. I would definitely tell the young Robb Armstrong that he's off his rocker about that. Yeah. Like, you want to talk about something that used to truly upset me? It was not ever being nominated for any industry awards. Like, that used to truly get to me. Because not only would it get to me, but it was turning me into a very cynical person, because I would look at anyone else who was nominated and be overly critical of their work. Harsh, actually. I don't want to start quoting the things I would say. I'm not proud of those things.
No, but
and I would never engage in that today. Like, I don't even want an award now. Like, I really don't. I think that none of that's healthy. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know many award winners who got better after getting that award.
Right.
After getting the ultimate prize for this weird trophy, I've only seen the opposite. I've seen people leave the industry after young, talented. Yeah. They just go, hey, okay, that's it, I'm out of here.
I've got the Reuben now. I'll show all of you.
Yeah. I'm gone. But I'm not. Again, it could be a coincidence that happened, that they left after getting a Reuben. I would never pursue that, because I don't have room in my life for it. I don't even have room in my studio for it. Mm-hmm. I've been given more recognition than I deserve, to be honest with you. Not only that, this career, that 30-year-long career, I would tell young Robb Armstrong, that's going to be your prize. Because it's rare. I'm in good company when I tell you I've been doing one thing for 30 years. Yeah. I'm in an incredibly small company when it comes to comic strip creators. I'm also in a small group of people in America who have done one thing well enough to be kept on for 30 years and not thrown out, forced out, retired early, quit, resign, and to be loving it too. On top of that, these are blessings, Gil, upon blessings, upon blessings. This is why I would never pursue strange trophies or these types of things. I'm not saying I'll never agree to a television version because I'm still approached with that stuff. I just signed for the New Age. I'm with Paradigm now, and they're interested in doing something with TV and all. But I'm not sitting by the phone.
Yeah, and trying to craft your new pitch for the whole thing.
No, I'm not doing that. There may come a time when I have to do it again. Hey, come on, Rob, we need a formal pitch. Okay. But every day that doesn't happen is a good day. The day that does happen, some network says, we're going to do it. It's a scary day. And I'm not living a scary life, but that would be a scary time. Because when they do that, they're... you ever see that egg timer that the Wicked Witch of the West flips over? The hourglass?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you're... They're flipping over an hourglass on you.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. Okay. Yeah. How about a little fire scare? Because that's what that world is. And the difference is the Wicked Witch of the West isn't making you rich in the process. And since Hollywood is, lots of good people say, you know what? Let's do it.
Well, keep dancing.
Yeah.
The thing that surprised me during the presentation yesterday, you read the comments on the internet about your strip, which again you focused on the ones that are either for or against things that happen with the characters. But are you insane? I mean, reading the comments is really the thing that destroys our souls in general.
Well, yeah, I think I may have gone over the deep end because I like it. Even when it's really, sometimes it's so cynical and mean-spirited. And someone has just decided to get my attention for some reason. They just want me to react, get back on that thing and say something. I don't respond. In fact, when I talk to young cartoonists here at this industry that we're at now, some of them respond too much to readers. And I do caution a young person against that. I don't discourage reading things, but responding to every negative thing is not good. And explaining comic strips that people don't get is a no-no. It's a flat-out no-no. I do not explain Jumpstart to anyone. Not my great aunt. No one. I mean, I get it. I get that my aunt doesn't get it today. I just go, oh, aren't you sweet? Thanks for reading.
Bless your heart.
Bless your, yeah. She's, no, I want you to explain it to me. I gotta go. I gotta this thing.
Just read it again. You'll get it.
I gotta run into this meeting. I'll call you back and I'll explain everything. The strip must be in your stead. It must, because one day it is going to be speaking for me. One day I will not be here. I hate to be morbid about this, but I'm writing for posterity's sake. I'm writing this thing so that it will be my surrogate, 100%. And you can't write it with the hope that your readers are going to contact you and say, can you explain it? You go, I'm glad you called. This is tricky. Here's what I was trying to say. It means you failed. It means you failed as a writer. Now, you're going to fail as a writer. There's no way every strip you do is going to be A, liked by everybody, and B, understood by anybody, by every single person, or hated by every single person. You're going to have a kind of a mixed bag. But the characters, again, going back to the characters, their raison d'etre has to be obvious. Their reason for being must be evident and obvious, no matter what you've written on any given day. So, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to be here. Joe's actually going to outlive me. Marcy, Teddy, Tommy, Sonny, JoJo, Crunchy, Captain Ruiz, they're all going to outlive me. And whether it's being written by another person or not, I don't know.
Yeah, is there anything in the contracts about that stuff, or is it out of your hands?
No. I have a contract that prevents anyone else from doing it, even if I'm dead. Schultz allowed the writing process to end when his life ended, and I'm leaning toward that. I only signed 5 years at a time. So if God is willing and I live 5 more years, I'm not sick, you guys. I'm just saying. Yeah. If I'm still around after 5 years, I'll revisit this idea again, because I'm not steadfast against someone doing Jumpstart, but right now I am.
Yeah. When you talk about renegotiating, does the Sunday flexibility thing, like what Watterson did years ago when it was, I want my own shape for Sundays. I don't want a strip that has to be segmentable and sort of Tetrised into whatever the papers need. Has that ever been something that you've been interested in?
No, I not that. Watterson's influence is enormous on all of us. It rivals Schultz's influence. It's not bigger, it's not greater, because Schultz changed the way we approach the craft itself. Mm-hmm. Extremely nuanced characters and relatable stories, even when they're negative. I mean, Charlie Brown had serious issues, serious self-esteem issues, and making that your heroic, your most sympathetic characters is a Schultz convention. It's incredible. So putting your character's flaws out in front of the character is his main thing. That's straight from Schultz. The execution of a strip in such a way that is visually arresting is straight Watterson. Like, he made us do that.
Yeah.
Period. This guy
just raised
the bar.
Yeah.
And he did it. And he did not stick around. Like, he's gone. I mean, I think his whole career was 10 years long.
Well, they had the big exhibition here at the Billy Ireland of his stuff, mm-hmm. and it was him and Richard Thompson. I think the story was that I'll give you my stuff for an exhibition, but we also have to do one of Richard while he's still with us. And Caitlin McGurk told the story, I think it was on Mike, that Watterson came to the Billy Ireland to work on the project with them, and they went out to lunch, and Caitlin had this moment of, oh my God, I'm sitting with Bill Watterson and nobody in this room knows it, because no one knows what he looks like, because he stayed completely anonymous and kind of eschewed part of the fame of being a cartoonist in so many ways. So there's so many aspects of what he did that, beyond the craft in terms of approaching the business also, that, again, I'm sure with you guys, it's all the figuring out where you fit in and how you make the strip work.
Yeah, he did things like that. He stayed small, made the strip real big, retired early, vanished off into the sunset and everything. People tell stories that take on kind of folklore at this point. I sat next to him at a banquet. He wouldn't sign my napkin, all this kind of stuff. I mean, he demonstrated these quirky, temperamental artist things. There's no question. I never met the guy, but clear. I mean, Calvin is a very temperamental little dude, and to the extent that we all slip into self-analysis and self-indulgence with these characters, I've just assumed, without hearing these stories, that he's a piece of work. I mean, Calvin flat out hates people and just preferred to be with the imaginary tiger. So I'm assuming that Bill Watterson.
There's a piece of that.
Yeah, he's seen a lot of monkey business in his life, and he's like, you know what? I don't want to tolerate this and that anymore. And I can finally tell people what I want, what I don't want, and they'll listen. I'm assuming he spent a lot of years beating his head against the wall and having, whatever. You know how the world does you. If you're an artist, they're like, what? Sit over there and draw for my newspaper, One day he said, I don't have to do anything. I don't want to do. And he was right. But what he did do was set a fire under all of us. Like, you better sit down and draw. And I'm seeing now, as we roll into 2020, in the 90s, man, and even in the early 2000s, like cartoonists were like, I'm going to draw. I want to sit down and draw like Watterson, And I'm no exception. Like, I'm going to draw. I'm going to draw something today. Like, I would literally think I'm going to draw something like Calvin and Hobbes today.
Yeah.
I don't know if other people were doing this. I have no idea. I know we all have his books. I know that if you're stuck, you can open. I hate to say this. It sounds like I'm sitting around stuck and I get writer's block. I actually don't get that because I have so many characters and they have such a history. And I'm never starting with a blank piece of paper. Yeah. If you understand what I'm saying, there's a back story to everything I do. But when I open up a Calvin and Hobbes book today, it's for the simple reminder of what can be done if you focus on the visual opportunity that's in front of you, what you can do with that real estate as it is. I have no desire to do what Watterson did and start telling editors, listen, I want this type of space, or I want that type of space. I want you to make sure you don't do this to me or that to me. Given that little postage stamp that we all get, you can knock people's socks off, man. That's what Watterson reminds me of.
Snowmen.
Yeah.
There's still nobody who does snowmen like that.
No one can draw a snowman like this guy. At one point I tried to do igloos. I'm saying, he did snowmen, I'll do igloos. You know what I mean? Like, you can't get away from this guy's influence on this industry. And we should not get away from it. What I see today, sadly, is different than what I saw in the 90s. Almost all of us were like trying to outdraw each other in the 90s. Now there's a kind of we're going to out-tech each other. And I'm still an old school dude. I just work with a piece of paper and a paper made flare and all that kind of stuff. Sharpies and stuff, like whiteout, you know what I mean? And there's people in my industry now. So the big thing isn't this Watterson influence. It's the Wacom tablet influence.
Yeah.
Like, that's the exciting new girl in school or something. And I'm not into that girl.
Yeah.
I'm just not. People are saying, but she's hot. You know what Robb, dude.
Change your entire thing. But
yeah, right, dude.
It's actually something I wonder, like the years of moonlighting, of doing the art and the advertising work. Did the time constraints of that dictate how you draw? And do you wish, you would have been drawing somehow differently back then? And would that have changed the style of Jumpstart, going forward? How much of it was driven, I guess, by the time constraints?
I drew slower. I drew slower then than I draw now. Like, yeah. Back then I had less time to do it. And it was a more tedious process. Mm-hmm. It all took longer. The thought process was slightly longer. The execution of it way longer. There was no shortcuts when I was working in the advertising business. Yeah. In fact, just to put in shading, just to indicate that my characters have dark brown skin during the week, required cutting film and essentially pasting it down on hands and faces, using an X-Acto knife to cut the shapes for every inch of the strip.
And that's something you really can't sneak time in during the workday, because someone's going to walk into your room and see you sitting there with things
with an X-Acto knife,
just looking at you for a second and double taking.
It was an insane process. Yeah. I mean, the thing I'm most grateful to the internet for is Photoshop. Like, like that's the best thing about it.
He's got a fill shade. He's done
fill shading and all that. I'm just like so happy to not be cutting things with an X-Acto knife. I mean, like a surgeon. I could have done open heart surgery in those days. I was so good with a knife, and now it's quicker because I can scan things into Photoshop and not just put in shading and stuff. I can put in gradations and backgrounds and just eliminate accidental marks. Today, Jumpstart has no accidents. You can't detect anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Because I can turn on my radio or put on the television and clean this thing up perfectly until it appears to be created by one of these machines.
Yeah.
Now, that's good for something in print. But what's even better for a piece of artwork is for it to have mistakes and lines and marks and a wild gesture quality that my roughs have. And one of the reasons I will never, and I'm telling you, I never will do this. I will never go completely digital, is because I draw beautiful roughs. They're beautiful by anyone's standard, by any artist or non-artist standard. My roughs have a dynamic quality that my originals do not have. There's a movement and a vitality to them that I find to be stunning. The roughs they are breathing and alive, and they're wild to look at. I have a 30-year collection coming out in 2020, and I'm going to have so many roughs in print. I just think people need to see what can happen when you're free. When you're free and expressive and you're not concerned with mistakes. Little kids who like to draw need to see that perfection is not necessary when you're thinking and drawing and creating something. To be loose, to be expressive, and to be clear that you love these characters, that you love what you're doing. This can be best expressed in a rough sketch.
How long did it take you to figure that out? To realize that final comic that you saw in the papers had to come from something like this?
It took a while because my industry influenced me, the way other cartoons work industry. For my first 5 years of working, I worked like Schultz. For all of the greatness of Sparky Schultz, he doesn't have roughs left behind.
Yeah.
None I know about. I mean, maybe there's some in the museum. I had not seen rough sketches from Schultz because to create Peanuts, he did his roughs on the same surface as his finishes.
Yeah.
He lightly indicated his rough sketches, created his finishes, and then erased the rough evidence. You can see erasure marks, and you can see where he did a rough sketch and everything. But other than that, there's no evidence of his roughs. So the biggest thing I had to do was stop working like Charles Schultz. And this happened about 5 years into my deal. I said, I can't. First of all, it takes enormous amounts of time to be this way, to do a rough, do an inking, and then erase your rough. It's really long. And it's stilted because your roughs aren't, which by the way worked great for Peanuts.
Yeah. These
characters are extremely geometric. He's working with circles, squares, and triangles, okay, and trapezoids. And so it's fine that he decided to do this. For me, I'm not doing that. To be mimicking him or working like him was a mistake. I needed the freedom to draw however at first. And it dawned on me about 5 years in, I said, this is going to take a lot less time if I just loosen up and just go for it. My roughs aren't even in pencil, they're in ink.
Shit.
I do a fully inked rough. And I don't want to sound self-important or self-congratulatory by telling you how gorgeous these things are. I know they're gorgeous because they're done in ink.
Yeah.
No one can erase them. I'm now anti-pencil. I go to speak at schools and art programs. I say, hey, class, do me a favor. Toss all your pencils in that trash can over there. Because those are the work of the devil. The devil invented pencils. He put erasers on a device to remove the evidence that you were ever born. So take that and throw it away.
The pencil symbolizes doubt. For
It
self-doubt.
symbolizes self-doubt.
Huh.
Kids are eager to erase their mistakes. As a result of that, you ever see a little kid draw something? They make one line, an eighth of an inch long, and they erase it immediately.
Yeah.
Most of their time hovering over their work is spent, what? Drawing? No, erasing. Mm-hmm. Removing any evidence that they ever lived on planet Earth. These marks that the artist makes, this is our signature. This is our footprint. These marks are important. They have to stay here. And that's why I'm so proud of my roughs, because they are my true signature. It's like looking at what I'm all about. When you see them, we see a lot of them together, man. When I see a lot of my roughs together, like spread out, it's emotional. Like I want to cry. I'm just like, wow, look at what I did with my life. That little boy that like loved to draw is doing this and getting paid for it. I don't feel the same way about my finishes. My finishes are just okay. They look great in the newspaper. They look great in Go Comics. They work professionally, but I don't feel emotional about them because they've been fussed over and perfected. There is absolutely no flaws. By the time you see my final thing, it's flawless. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I've literally spent about 3 hours removing their flaws. It's like this process. I have no other jobs, dude. I have nothing else to do. Okay, but to eat dinner at my drawing, you know what I mean? My wife is like, "Can I bring you something to eat?" Sure, honey.
You're the janitor at that point. You're just, you get a little mop and brush, and you're cleaning up all these little
marks. Yeah. And there's a dot. There's an extra little comma somehow I got into. It's crazy. So I like the rough. Mm-hmm. I could talk about them all day, and that's what I'm doing, unfortunately. So
no, I can't wait to see the collection because that's the sort of stuff that appeals to me. Frankly, yeah. It's for me it was a Beatles track. There's an Elvis Costello track actually. I heard a demo of, and it was the revelatory moment of it wasn't perfect. Well, you hear the album, and that's the perfected version. But hearing these roughs and demos means everything is progress. Everything is how you develop and where you find the right combination of words or the right strokes of the pen, etc.
It's such a good analogy. I once saw a piece of footage on YouTube of Marvin Gaye. I think he was singing. He was in the studio doing outtakes or whatever they call them. I'm not a singer. I don't know what they do. They just got to sit around and riff. And they get ready to get recorded, but they're not being recorded. Well, he was being recorded. Marvin Gaye was being recorded.
But he was just rehearsing. Yeah.
Rehearsing. And laying on a sofa, completely lying on a sofa, on his back. You could hear someone off camera asking him to do whatever. And he would do it on his back, on a sofa. And it was so beautiful, man. You realize this guy he's not outfitted with technology at all.
Yeah. And he's not, standing fully and breathing right and everything. He's
not in a special room with those weird pads on the walls. Yeah. He's on a sofa. And you realize that his gift was expressed so beautifully in that moment. Because it was unadorned by anything else. It was just raw. Wow, this guy could just lay on a sofa and demonstrate more God-given talent than like anyone. like maybe this is the most talented singer I've ever heard. I mean, look at this guy. It's incredible when we're stripped away of all this fancy stuff.
All the finishes and the affectations. And,
Like, what do you got? What do you really got here? You know what I mean? That's what you want to see. You want some opportunity to see that. I was glad that someone caught him unofficially with a video camera, whatever I don't know how they got him like this, but that's what I'm hoping to capture in my book is a moment of unadorned jumpstart, how it looks when I'm thinking about it.
And when you talk about the influence of Schultz on you, and you had the great story of meeting him the first time and then your subsequent relationship with him, you have experiences like that with younger cartoonists? I've been reading Jumpstart since I was
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was out until 2:00 in the morning with a cartoonist who's now in the business, and we were goofing around singing karaoke, and he was like, "Man, I was a kid. I was such a huge admirer of yours. I can't believe we're out singing karaoke together." And I don't think of myself as Schultz, and I don't want this to come off.
I didn't want to imply in any way that, you're the next Charles Schultz.
Right.
And yes, as a matter of fact, I am.
But there is absolutely someone out there who is telling a story about me. There's no question about it. They're saying I was a fan of his when I was a kid, and now I'm a friend of his now, and we sing together and we hang out. And this guy he also told me that when he was a kid, he was very tempted to send me his work, but he got scared and didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't like hearing that.
No, but that's what I've learned from the show, from doing this for 350 times, is that artists actually do like to hear from people who like their work and have something to show them. But from the other side, it's so, people ask me, like, how can you sit down and talk with this person and that person? I'm like, everybody's Joe. They're all people, and they actually like to know that there's, an interaction and an audience. But when the farther removed you are from that, especially as when you're young, you just don't know.
Well, I don't want anyone afraid, because I believe our real purpose and our greatest contribution is helping somebody, not necessarily, doing the strip and being published is part of it. Making a living is definitely part of it. All that's very important. But helping a young person solidify their belief in what they can do is extremely urgent. It's not just a good deed. It's different than helping an old lady across the street. Without that, we're nothing. Without saying to a young person, you're special. You need to pursue this. You can make it in this business, or whatever you choose to do. You can do it. People who have made it need to do this. We cannot start pulling up the ladder behind us.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about comics right now. I just mean in life, as Americans. I don't care who's telling you to pull the ladder up behind you. We have to be welcoming, helpful. We have to be loving. We have to get off this high horse. I'm talking politics right now.
Yeah.
This self-important BS that somehow you're something and the other person over there is nothing.
Right.
Is actually demonic. It's demonic. Like, guys, whoever is listening to me, don't do that. Mm-hmm. Don't believe that. The person who's saying that has serious issues. The person who has embraced that, who believes that, who's pushing that out there, terrifying. Our only real value is telling someone else, I'll make time to help you. Someone made time to help me. Charles Schultz made time. Can I sit down and talk to you? Charles Schultz was a humble man. Maury Turner, first African-American to have a syndicated comic strip. I would not be syndicated without Maury Turner. Period. Maury Turner and his one of his partners, Mark Cohen, literally took my work to United Feature Syndicate in 1988, and I got syndicated 1 year later. This is after years of beating my head against the wall and trying to break through and blah, 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 blah. Someone said, come see me. Maury Turner said, come see me. I jumped in the car and drove to Ohio, sat down with him and this guy named Buck Brown. Buck Brown did cartoons for Playboy magazine. He had this granny character in Playboy magazine.
Oh, God. I remember those. Yeah.
And people think a white dude was behind that. Yeah. There's a black dude named Buck Brown. And Buck, God rest his soul, he passed away. And Maury Turner has also passed away. I met with them in Ohio with Walt Carr, who worked for Ebony magazine. And they had kind of come up with an idea to do an insert, black cartoonist. So I wasn't syndicated yet. I was pursuing it unsuccessfully. And they said, we have a great idea that you could be a part of. We're going to do an insert and just give it away to newspapers. Mm-hmm. All of us doing black comic strips in it. And I was like, that is so exciting. I went to Ohio, met my idol, Maury Turner, and blah, blah, blah. And it was going great. They even let me come up with a name. We called it US Artists. And I was all excited. And one day I got back to Philly and stuff, and Maury called me and said, "We don't want you. I don't think," he said, "Rob, after looking at your work, I don't think you should be a part of what we're doing, what we're trying to do." Mm-hmm. I was like, "What? Are you kicking me out of the group?" I was really hurt. I was the youngest guy in the group, you know?
Yeah.
And he said, "No, I think you're a syndicated cartoonist. I think one day soon, actually, you're going to be a syndicated cartoonist. What we're trying to do is to give away for free an insert." He said, "You can become rich." And like, I can't say that about every person I meet, mm-hmm. right? This is Maury Turner, who was widely syndicated, right. A pioneer and a living legend, telling me that I was great. And Gil, I was a snot-nosed kid, right. And could not believe it. I couldn't, even saying it again, I get chills. Yeah. I can't get over the fact that he was doing this. Who am I to now pull the ladder up behind myself? Who am I to tell another kid I don't have time? Who am I to tell any other person who wants to survive or to make it to go away? I don't get it. I don't see it. I don't see it happening. So, Maury took my work for me, took it into United Media. I was signing a deal, man. And he lived to be 90 years old. I went to his 90th birthday party. I used to call him Dad. I said, "Dad, man, you're gonna outlive newspapers, man." Yeah. I said, "I can't." He said, he thought he had already outlived newspapers. Yeah. He said, I think I did. I think it's over for newspapers. But he was such a good guy, humble, just not a jerk, man.
Yeah.
Again, to anyone who hears your podcast, Gil, how have we gotten to the point where someone says to you, encourages you to become a jerk, an asshole, and you agree to it? You say, "I want to be an asshole like you."
Yeah. Just
we can't do it, man.
To me, civil society and the examples we have in front of us are just nightmarish. So,
it's horrible. Like, it is horrible. And I'm not talking about Democrats and Republicans and all that. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
I don't know what I am exactly politically. People say, "Well, you got to come up with something." No, I don't. No.
You're you. Yeah.
I'm me. Like, if you make sense, I could vote for you.
Right.
But if you are not making sense or encouraging me to turn myself into an asshole, can I say that word on your podcast?
Yeah. No one's listening. I'm just kidding.
Right. If you're telling me that the best thing for me to do is to become a jerk just because you are a jerk, I'm not going to vote for you.
Right.
That's where it ends. I don't have anything else to say about it. Whoever's telling you this, don't forget, they're relying on one thing for you, not you becoming a jerk or an asshole. They're relying on you to vote for them. All you have to do is not do that.
I will say, for my day job where I deal with Congress a bunch, I've developed a belief that a lot of these guys are good at winning popularity contests. And as we know, growing up,
right,
people who win popularity contests are not exactly, sterling examples of humanity.
Right.
In a lot of respects. So, yeah, I've actually had to learn how to imply, "Hey, way to beat the indictment that time," without actually saying, "Way to beat the indictment." Because, there are ways you have to couch meaning and.
Incidentally, I'm entertained by today's politics. I don't want to come off like I'm on some high horse. I'm looking down at these guys. These guys, everyone in that game have captivated me from an entertainment standpoint. Yeah. I hate to say that. No. It's very serious business. They're killing people. They're killing people, making people suffer. Yeah. But I'm entertained like I never have been before. Like, television to me is just like a chance to watch them on TV. Like, and I've had to stop watching CNN and MSNBC and stuff. I actually backed down from it because I've become addicted to it. And I asked myself one day, why am I addicted to it? And I had to confess, because nothing has entertained me like this in my life.
It's punching all those buttons that we've got. The same way the internet does for people with the outrage thing. It's well, to me, one of the funny things on the flight here, not funny, but on the flight here, I was just going through old photos on my iPad and came across this wonderful series of pictures I took of Jerry Moriarty, this painter and illustrator teacher. It was a year and a half ago that he and I had sat down to record, and I could have sworn it was like 4 or 5 years. And I'm looking like March 2018. Oh my God! And just time is just stretching on and on. We're just every day is 10 more days piled in. When I was talking to Patrick McDonald and Karen, it's sort of like dog years. Every year now feels like 7 years long because we're constantly getting shoveled and getting entertained. I will say, in terms of the entertainment factor and possible sociopathic nature of these guys, I once got off the Acela in Newark and saw Cory Booker was in front of me, the senator from New Jersey. Wow. Walked over, just tapped him on the shoulder to introduce myself, explain my day job, give him my card. And he turned and looked at me and had this look on his face like I was a friend from college he had not seen in 25 years.
Really?
Yeah, he could just like that. And I was just, God damn, you guys are good and scary. But it was just, how are you? Just this look on his face. I'm like, you don't know who I am. I'm just some guy. But that's part of the gift, I guess.
That's very well put, because they are gifted. And I had no business being in the dark like I was. I had no business having my head in the sand and not knowing what the branches of government were. And I had no business being like that. I was foolish for a long time. And I was lulled into a weird slumber, even during the Obama years. And I loved Obama. I love him. He's not gone. He's around. I love what he represents and who he is and stuff. But I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. I didn't care about anything. I had zero concerns. I've become very concerned now. Right. And now I know all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Donald. I know all kinds of things.
You're a more engaged civic citizen citizen because
I can't knock that part. I mean, that part he did. This dude did something good. It's incredible.
It's an accident, but yeah. So last question for you. Another 30 years? If you have Maury Turner's lifespan, another 30 years of
Isn't that something that he had that lifespan like that? Yeah, man. I would
I interviewed Milton Glaser a few weeks ago. He had just turned 90, and the only concession he made is that they're moving to a new studio because he didn't like walking up 2 flights of stairs on 23rd Street. So still goes to work 5 times a week. Keeps cruising. So
I'd be honored to do Jumpstart for 30 more years. I'd be honored to do it for 2 more lifetimes. I am extremely grateful for this career and grateful for your interviewing me.
Oh, it's been great to have you on, Rob. Thanks.
It's been fun. Thanks, Gil.
And that was Rob Armstrong. I have not seen a listing yet for that 30th anniversary collection of Jumpstart, but I can't wait to check that out the way he describes all the additional material besides the strips themselves. Now, you can find Jumpstart every day in the newspapers, as well as at gocomics.com/jumpstart, all one word. And Go Comics is GOCOMICS. You can also find Rob's author site on Facebook by searching for Rob Armstrong, and that's Rob with 2 B's, R-O-B-B, as in short for Robin. And after we wrapped, I asked Rob, so, who you been reading? And if you want to hear his answer to that, you'll need to become a supporter of the Virtual Memories Show so you can get access to our quarterly bonus podcast, Fear of a Square Planet. The third quarter 2019 episode is up now, and it features an hour of book recommendations and fun conversation with Carl Stevens, Emily Nussbaum, Kate Maruyama, Laniers, Christopher Brown, Caleb Crane, David Shields, Dawn Raffel, Amor Tolles, Simon Doonan, Simon Critchley, and Sylvia Nickerson. You can support the Virtual Memories Show via patreon.com/VMSpod or paypal.me/VMSpod. I've got all sorts of goals and goodies in place for patrons, including that podcast, patron-only blog, handwritten show notes for every episode, my secret project, blah, 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 and more. So go to patreon.com/VMSpod and support the art of fine conversation. Now, I recorded this one during Cartoon Crossroads Columbus Weekend, or CXC, last September. Hotel was $560 for 2 nights. Airfare was $550. Parking at Newark was $100 or so. I also spent a little money on coffee, a couple of meals, lift out to Ray Ray's Hog Pit and back. So figure like $1,300 or so for the weekend. I got in 5 podcasts from Friday afternoon to Sunday, as well as some fun off-mic conversation, so it all works out to a decent rate. Plus, as I am the king of downers, it turned out to be the last time I saw my best friend, Tom Spurgeon, and that, of course, is priceless. If you want to help defray some of the real costs of the Virtual Memories show, like web hosting, travel, equipment, and coffee, or just toss me some money because you think the show is worth it, then visit patreon.com/VMSpod or paypal.me/VMSpod and make a one-time or recurring donation. A special thanks go out to Nick Bartosik, Buzz Carter, Michael Hacker, Michael Janizik, Fred Kish, Annie Koyama, Jonathan Kranz, Kevin Katila, Jack Lescamella, Stephen Nadler, Barbara Nessim, Jim Ottaviani, George Fow, Payne Prophet, Dmitry Samarov, David Small, Stephen Solomon, Greg Tanner, Ford Thomas, Armando Veve, and Garrett Zecker for going over and above in their support of the Virtual Memories show. We have the full list of show supporters at chimeraobscura.com/VM. Our music for this episode is Fella by Hal Mayforth, used with permission from the artist. You should visit my archives to check out my episode with Hal from the summer of 2018 and learn more about his art and painting. And you can listen to his music at soundcloud.com/Mayforth. And that's MAY4TH. And that's it for this week's episode of the Virtual Memories Show. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another great conversation. You can subscribe to the Virtual Memories Show and download past episodes at the iTunes Store. You can also find all our episodes and get on our email list at either of our websites, vmspod.com or chimeraobscura.com/VM. You can also follow the Virtual Memories Show on Twitter and Instagram at vmspod, at virtualmemoriespodcast.tumblr.com, and on YouTube, Spotify, and TuneIn.com by searching for Virtual Memories Show. And if you like this podcast, please tell your pals, talk it up on social media, and go to iTunes, look up the Virtual Memories Show, and leave a rating and maybe a review for us. It all goes to helping us build a bigger audience. You've been listening to the Virtual Memories Show. I'm your host, Gil Roth. Keep reading, keep making art, and keep the conversation going.